Hey everybody, what's up? Just heading down to Joplin right now. I'm gonna go down and visit my dad. I hadn't seen him for a couple weeks since we've been gone to this tournament here. And got Elijah with me. He's ready to see his pawpaw. So hey, just wanted to take a time and make a little video here. I've been doing quite a bit of stuff on fall fishing. Trying to put out some stuff pertinent to what's going on at the current conditions. And one of the things that I wanted to share with y'all today was try to get an understanding of what it means when the bass start moving into their winter patterns from the fall patterns, sort of the fall to winter transition. Because this is an important time frame as far as understanding, fish movements and sort of adjusting your techniques to that seasonal movement that the fish have all over the country. So what you have on this particular thing is, first of all, the transition in the fall time. It doesn't matter if it's like summer to fall, mid-fall, fall to winter. It's a very, very slow process until you have weather that intervenes on there that can really trigger the thing to really begin, to make a switch. And when you're talking about fall to winter transitions, this is probably the most important time of the year to understand how those weather patterns can affect, what the bass do as far as radically changing, how they bite and, how they're positioned and their movements and that type of stuff. So this fall transition, what I'm talking about into winter time, right now we're almost to November. I mean, tomorrow's the first, what today is, first day of November. So, I sort of consider November to be that transition from fall into winter patterns, particularly later in the month of November. And the biggest thing that you have to realize in this, a lot of it is just, it depends on the geographical part of the country that you're in. It depends on the type of lake or river that you're fishing, because some of them are more apt to those changes than others. But the biggest consideration that you have once you start to enter November, and maybe sometime closer to December if you're down south a little bit more, is those first big late fall cold fronts that come in. The ones that come in that drop the temperatures radically. Like for example here in Missouri, usually the first part of November, we'll get a couple cold fronts that come in that really drop that water temperature, or not the water temperature, really drops that air temperature, sometimes down into the upper 20s, which is, way below normal. And it's that first radical drop that like those Arctic cold fronts that first start coming in November. Those are the things that really start to make the bass begin to move, because those are the things that really start dropping the water temperature. And what you have with that also is, once you have those cool nights, if you have daytime temperatures that aren't warming up much, like they're staying in the 30s or 40s or low 50s, and you're still getting down in the 20s at night, and you don't have a lot of sunshine, those are the things that really drop that surface water temperature a lot, especially if it's if you get a couple of those fronts that come in back to back. So for me, what I consider the big change from fall into winter time is when that water temperature starts to get about probably 30 degrees below its peak in the summertime of the year. For example, here in Missouri, this part of the country, and sort of all along the country in the same latitude, it can be, it could be as far east as Lake Norman, it could be far, west of some of the California lakes. But during that latitude, that 30-degree drop from the peak summer temperatures usually puts that water temperature down into the low 50s, or maybe around 50 degrees. Sometimes a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less. It just depends on that. And once you have that, you start seeing a big transition in how the fish begin to position. And what happens is, once that water temperature, once those fish begin to move into their winter patterns, and it happens slowly, even with those radical temperature changes, it starts to happen slowly. you usually have a combination of the water begins to clear up a little bit, and a lot of times it tends to drop a little bit. So you have falling water temperatures, you have increased water visibilities, and you have lower water levels for the most part. And what this does is it creates two different populations of fish. Until that water temperature starts to get down to the lowest point, which is normally like in January most parts, normally you have two different segments of the fish. You have these fish that, they begin to suspend, particularly if you have water visibilities, anything over 2 to 3 feet in clarity. You have, I'm going to guess, half the bass in the lake start to suspend to some extent, and at different levels. Based upon the clarity, again, you can have bass suspend down 20, 30, 40 feet, like in a lake, a blueback herring lake, like Lake Annear, or you can have them suspending, 5 feet deep on a lake, an Ozark lake, like Bull Shoals Lake, something like that, in the clear water. In the same time, and this is normally goes on like on the sort of like in the main lake areas predominantly, or some of the bigger, the main secondary creeks and the larger points on the secondary creeks, you have a lot of suspending activity. But what you'll have also is you'll have a population of fish even into the early winter that still stay shallow, super shallow, and most of the time those bass are the ones that are like on steeper banks in the backs of the coves, on back in the back of the creeks, that type of stuff, upper river arms. You got those bass that will stay shallow up until that water temperature drops below 50 degrees. And there's a big difference in 50-degree water in the late fall and 50-degree water in the pre-spawn. And this is a big thing anglers need to understand, is when you have a drop in temperature down to 50 degrees, which occurs in the fall time of the year, those fish, they tend to want to move deeper and suspend. But if you have a 50-degree water temperature in the pre-spawn, when it's beginning to rise to 50, that really puts those fish wanting to move shallow and suspend less. So the water temperature is all relative to the daylight hours that come with that, because prior to December 22nd, we have the shortest days of the year, and during the pre-spawn, where it's getting 2 or 3 minutes longer each day. So it's sort of like it's a cycle. It's like it's been around for millions of years for bass. It's something they're just ingrained as far as their movement goes. So what that means, as far as when you, as far as from a fishing aspect, the transition is, really use the day, the type of day that you're out on the lake, to dictate your technique. If you're fishing, say, in the next couple of weeks, mid part of November, you've got some cold fronts coming through, water temperature starting to cool off significantly. Just use the lake that you have, the water clarity as your first guide to begin. If you've got a lake that has 3 foot plus, visibility, and that water temperatures get down to close to 50 degrees, that's the time of year, coming up real soon, that you want to try to target those suspended bass. The best in 2 or 3 of the best ways to catch them, any type of swim bait, any type of ball head swim bait, like Megabass Spark Shad, the Kitex are real good. Any type of small swim bait works really good, during that fall to winter transition. It's another bait that works really good that time of year is an Alabama rig. I know it's not a big favorite of everybody. It's not a favorite of mine, but once you start getting into that fall to winter transition, particularly into early winter, Alabama rig's hard to beat. And thirdly would be a jerkbait, which would be my favorite preference. I normally start noticing a big improvement on the jerkbait bite once that water temperature starts to get down in the low 50s during that transition. We'll talk about a lot of that. We're giving the advanced jerkbait seminar on the Fish the Moment website coming up this Thursday. Go on fishthemoment.com, check it out, sign up for the virtual seminar if you want. I'm going to cover a lot of that. But a jerkbait is a really good bait, during that fall transition period. And also one more thing, a couple of different things that work good. Another thing is good. That's the time of year they begin to hit the crawfish crankbaits. And it'll work there's like a window that they bite a crawfish crankbait in the fall time of the year before that water temperature gets below 50. then it sort of dies off when it gets really cold, picks up again during the pre-spawn. And also, you can't discount a jig. You know, this is the time of year during that transition I love to fish like a small finesse jig on bluff, steep type banks. That works really good too. So anyway, like I said, just, you know, I've been trying to sort of, you know, share some tips with everybody about what I've experienced with fall fishing as far as the summer to fall, mid-fall, fall to winter transition. Those are the tips that I would, you know, really focus in on. You know, start to target your suspended fish. You know, stay shallow if you're in certain areas of the lake that are conducive to that, and stay with your swim baits, jerk baits, Alabama rig, jigs, crankbaits. Those are going to be really good choices moving forward this time of year. But anyway, just a few tips I wanted to throw out there. Hope everybody's having a good weekend. And like I said, one more time, I'll throw another plug out there. We're doing the advanced, you know, jerkbait seminar this Thursday, 6 to 9 p.m. Sign up for it on fishthemoment.com. It's going to be the most comprehensive, advanced, information-packed jerkbait seminar of all time. I'll challenge anybody to that. Going to be sharing a bunch of secrets to everybody. Check it out, fishthemoment.com. Send Johnny a note there, sign up for it. It's going to be a good deal. So we'll check in later on. We're going to go down here and visit Dad a little bit, and see y'all later. Bye.